Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for this great, awesome event for Dynamics Con, this virtual event that is for the community, by the community. So thank you for joining me today. And for today, my name is Aaron Back, and I'll be covering some new things that you may have seen or may not have seen, but hopefully this session will give you a heads up of what's to come and how to get yourself prepared for the new items in the Power Platform Admin Center, which is what we'll be covering today. So my title for today, the Admin Center for Dynamics 365 is changing. And are you ready? And my name is Aaron Back. I'm with Ace Microtechnology. And so we'll dive right into the presentation today. And there's a few slides I'll cover to help lay the groundwork. And then later on, we're going to dive into a live demo and show you stuff right from the Power Platform Admin Center. So to kick things off, just a quick agenda. We'll be covering out with the old and with the new, and then what is new in the Power Platform Admin Center. Just cover some of the areas, some little tips to watch out for, and some things that are brand new compared to the old Admin Center. So we'll be highlighting some of those today. So first of all, what's out with the old? So let's take a trip down memory lane, basically. And if you've been using Dynamics for a while, and I'm going back to Dynamics CRM and then to Dynamics 365, there's been that shift with the branding and the naming. But the Admin Center has been around for a little while now, a few years. And over that period of time, Microsoft has slowly been removing some of that functionality and the buttons that have been available and auto redirecting you to the newer Power Platform Admin Center pages that are specific to the function that you clicked. So in this particular area, let's take a trip down memory lane just to refresh your memory of some of the things that were there, and then we'll highlight some of the things that are in the new system. So first of all, here's the Admin Center that you may have seen through the years, and with the tabs across the top. And this was your instances area where you can manage your production, your sandbox type of instances, set your notifications, look into the solutions that were in these instances, and kind of get a sense of, how many instances do I have and what can I manage? So very basic, not a lot going on here, but this is what is the goal of Microsoft with the newer Power Platform Admin Center, is to give you extra tools and functionality that allow you to edit and manage these instances, which are now called environments, by the way. We'll highlight that in a moment, in a better sense. The next area was the updates. So if you recall, you had maybe you had a lot of different instances out there, sandbox for UAT, testing, things of that nature, development, and you wanted to check if there's an update available. Well, you can come out here and check if there was one available in your region, and then you could schedule the update, obviously after hours or over a weekend, and put that in place. Something to keep in mind is that the newer cadence for the updates, and I'll cover that in a moment in the Power Platform Admin Center, is that it's twice a year. And it's in the spring and the fall, and the target months are April and October. Each year is when the rollout automatically updates. However, prior to that, you'll have a chance to update your sandbox environments with an early release. So that way you can check out the new functions, features, review the release plans to see the newer functionality that's coming, test those things out to see if it's a fit for your environments, and then turn those on or off, or set them up, configure them how you'd like. And then if once the update rolls out production, you can then proceed to turn off and on the things that you'd like over there in production based on your testing. The next area is the service health. Now this area, very, very basic. Didn't provide much information. You have your list of instances here, how much storage is being used, and overall storage, and that's about it. Once you get into the new Power Platform Admin Center, you'll see that there's a lot more information that you can leverage and gain from the services information as far as the capacity now that you can measure. And a lot more details underneath that. So we'll cover that in a moment as well. The next area was the backup and restore area. Again, this is very basic. Choose your org at the top. So in this example, Contoso, create a new backup for that instance. Instance instead of org. And then do an ad hoc backup. Say you're importing a new third-party solution and you want to make a backup prior to importing that into one of your test or dev environments. You can do an ad hoc backup. Otherwise, there was automatic backups that happen daily, and you would see a list of those, when the dates were, and so forth. So if you needed to restore to an environment, you could pick one and do a restore. The next area was the applications area. So for example, if you needed to install the portal application into your environment, like this customer self-service portal example, or any other applications, you can install that into your environment. This is also where you would see if they were enabled or disabled, or if there was any updates to those applications in the list. So this, again, was just a quick reminder of these areas. Now, let's cover what's in with the new. What do we need to expect here? So like I mentioned, Microsoft's been transitioning the functionality and the features from the old Dynamics 365 Admin Center to the new Power Platform Admin Center, or PPAC. You see PPAC short out while you're doing Googling or searching. That's just shorthand for that. That's where you would be redirected now. If you put in the old Dynamics 365 URL, you'll get auto redirected now to the brand new site. Previously, there was just little functions and features from the old site would redirect you to the new functionality. Now you can't even go to the old site. You're getting redirected to the brand new site, and that's where you need to manage a lot of your administrative functionality for not only for Dynamics 365, but also for Power Apps. And there's some other functionality that I'll cover as well that will encompass Power Automate and also a peek into Power BI. So we need to be aware of some of the functionality that's in there. And then before we dive into that, there's a couple of points I need to highlight, and that is the security. So you obviously need to have some security enabled for your account so that you can access the Power Platform Admin Center. If not, you try to log in there and you won't be able to. A couple of things to highlight. The screenshot I have here is for the role assignments inside of the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Not to be confused with the Power Platform Admin Center, but the Dynamics 365 Admin Center. And inside there, once you select a user, you can go under their roles and select Admin Center Access. And underneath here, you can choose the various different types of admins that you can apply to their account. So for example, I have one highlighted here as Global Admin. Now I do want to caution with the Global Admin, that almost gives you God role. Gives you access to a lot of things that probably you don't need. So yes, you would get access if you do have this Global Admin, but that's not usually recommended. Or you can assign another role, such as the Power Platform Admin role. And if you scroll down in the side panel that appears in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, you'll see a section called Show by Category. And underneath that, you can see the Power Platform Admin option. So this should give you what you need. The Dynamics 365 Admin will also work, but since the shift is going more towards the Power Platform, I would suggest use the Power Platform Admin. To apply, after you apply the security roles, there's a couple ways to access the site. First is that you can go through the Admin Center, and on the left-hand side, there's the All Admin Centers option, and then you'll see a list of the admin centers that you do have access to based on your security, again, and you should see the Power Apps option. And I've got it highlighted here in red. Once you click that, it will redirect you to the PPAC site, and you can go from there with whatever you need. Obviously, the other option is to just do direct URL. So the first URL is just a little bit shorter than the second one, but it will do a redirect to the second one. It will automatically add in the .microsoft.com at the end. So just I always just do admin.powerplatform.com. It's just easier to remember. If you can remember the rest, the bottom one, feel free to do so. But I do recommend bookmark this in your browser so that you can have easy access to it instead of trying to remember what it is or going through the Microsoft 365 Admin Center route. So save yourself some clicks and just go directly to it through a stored in your favorites. All right, so what is new? What can we expect in the new site, and what do I need to be aware of that is new that wasn't in the old site? And so this extra functionality that I should be aware of, or extra information that I didn't have in the old Dynamics 365 Admin Center. So we'll cover that right now. So I'm going to flip over to the actual browser here. I'm logged into the Power Platform Admin Center, and as you can see up in the top left-hand corner, it indicates that. The first thing you'll land on is the environments area, and this environments area is very important just because this is like your instances in the old site. So if you have a production sandbox, multiple sandboxes, they'll all be listed here. Now, the thing that's important is you can create new environments out here, and that's all based on the amount of storage or capacity that you have available. So as long as you have capacity, you can create new environments. There is a minimum of 1 gig per environment that you need to have available if you need to create a new environment. And then obviously if you're going to load it with any data or any other things like web resources or start expanding that capacity because you're using it or testing it out, then obviously you'll need to have more space. So I'll show you where the capacity information is located, and then we'll go from there. A couple things to note when you do select an environment. You'll have other options light up at the top. So this is where you can dive into the settings of the environment. And the settings is an important one because if you're setting up the environment, this is where you see a lot of familiar information or options that you typically saw when you logged into your Dynamics instance and went to the settings menu. You see a lot of these same options here. Now I will like to point out that some of these are still going to point you to the classic user interface here. So if you see a tiny little pop-out box with an arrow next to the item list here, it will take you to the classic UI. Otherwise, if you don't see it, it will be inside this newer UI to do the updates that you need. So you see a lot of the information here. And then lastly, if they have not added a category already, you'll see all legacy settings. This will take you to just the classic settings menu. And if there's anything that's not here, you can still access that menu. Now in the future, the classic UI is going to be deprecated. It's going to be gone. So I believe it's after October 2020. Things have shifted because of the whole COVID thing. But you will see that deprecation of the classic UI. So you need to be prepared. So again, purpose of this session is to highlight the new stuff here so that you're prepared to manage or administer your environments in this newer site. So I would suggest you start leveraging the newer site as much as possible and only use the classic UI where it's necessary or it's redirecting you there to do so. All right, so again, the settings are right there for the specific environment. The other piece is if you do click on the name from the list or from that settings area, this will take you to the details of that environment, such as the URL, the status of it, region, obviously, and version. Another thing that's important is, as you can see right here, if there is a release or an update, you can apply that update. So for example, the early release of the Wave 2 for 2020 is available here, and I can apply that if I'd like. So what I mentioned a while ago, if you have a sandbox, you want to test out upcoming changes for an update. So a couple months ahead of time, review the release plans, log into your Power Platform Admin Center, select the sandbox environment, and then apply the update. So this will allow you to review that ahead of time. The other piece is you can review the access to this environment. So if you have special security roles or specific users that you allow access to this environment, you can check it out here. All right, enough of the environments area. There's a lot more to cover But for the sake of time, I'll move on because there's a lot of information that will be packed into this session today. All right, so after environments, over on the left-hand side, you now have some analytics. Previously, if you recall the screenshot I showed you as far as the storage available for the instances, very minimal information. It was just, here's how much storage was in that instance, and here's the overall storage for all your instances. And that was basically it. So sometimes you needed to know how much storage is a certain area of an environment consuming. Maybe you have a lot of emails with attachments, and you need to remove a lot of those old emails to reduce some of the capacity or storage being consumed. So how can I find that out? So what you would do is go under Analytics, and under Common Data Service, you'll see, and under Resources, there'll be a lot of analytics information that you can find available. So the first area is under this Analytics is the Common Data Service. So this is the back-end information that for Dynamics is stored under. Or if you're using Power Apps, you can have a model-driven app or a Canvas app, and the data behind that is the Common Data Service. That's where this information is stored in that database. But this gives you a lot of information up front as far as how many users you have in your system, how many active users, which I think is great if you're doing user adoption. And you want to see how many people are getting into the system and what type of things are they doing, so that you can encourage them to get into the system more. Maybe they need more hand-holding or training, so you can get that information very quickly. And then it could break down by those active users even further with the information as far as over a span of time, what operations are they performing, so creating things, updating things, just looking things up as far as reads. Another great point is the mode of access. What this is for is to let you know what devices the users are utilizing to access the system. So are they primarily on their phone or a tablet, or are they using a computer, going through a browser? What kind of browser are they using? So that can give you a sense. So if you're troubleshooting things and one of the users comes to you with an issue, you could typically see, oh, they're a primary user of their mobile device. So maybe they're on the mobile app. So I need to address the issue this way. Or if they're using the computer in the browser, maybe it's the type of browser they're using. Hopefully they're not using the old IE browser, Internet Explorer, and have moved on to more modern browsers such as Chrome or Edge Chromium from Microsoft, and are using those. So this gives you great information. One little tip here is something to note is that right here, it is going to show you by default the past 24 hours time frame in the instance that you are currently reviewing. So if you have multiple instances or a capacity that you're reviewing, you need to toggle to those. But the important thing is the date range. So if you can change that filter for the date range by clicking Change Filters over here and choose a date or time range to see that information across maybe a month span or a 3-month span going backwards. The other important one is the entities, most used custom entities, for example. So if you do have a lot of entities that you've customized or configured for your unique business uses, then you can see that information here. Obviously, I'm in a testing environment, but so there's not really many entities that are being used, but as you can see, this one, it's this mailbox tracking category. But if I had a lot of data in a lot of these entities, you'll see the ones that are most commonly used out there. Another one is system jobs. This is very important because you may have a lot of workflows or back-end things, well, I'll cover the APIs in just a moment, that are running, and you want to see the statistics on that to see how well they're performing, how often they're performing or running. So again, keep in mind that filter. So it's just the last 24 hours. But the information provided here gives you, as you can see, this one's got a lot of peaks and valleys across the time frame here. But it's a lot of useful information that you can use to administer your environments. If you do have any custom plugins, you can see that as well, and APIs. If you have some web API integration connecting to your CDS or Common Data Service, then you can see the information off of that. And obviously, another important thing is how many times has this thing been, the API been doing calls? There are API call limits depending on if it's Power Automate or direct web API connectors and things like that. So you'll need to be aware of that information. So I suggest you do some research on the API call limitations depending on the applications of use. And then if you have mailbox usage set up, so if you configured your Dynamics mailboxes for use with your Exchange, then you can see which ones are utilized the most, how often, and so forth. So you can give your information here. So a lot of information packed into this one area. Now Power Automate is another one. So again, this is additional information that you didn't have before in the old one, the old Admin Center. So in Power Automate, this is previously called Microsoft Flow, is your automation that you may have set up. I do have some information I can pull up right here to show you some of the analytics that are there if you start creating a lot more flows for Power Automate. So there's a runs report. As you can see here, again, keep in mind that you can change the filter. So keep that date range in mind when you're looking at this information. But daily runs, how often certain flows are running, weekly runs and monthly runs, so it gives you that good aggregate of how often, how frequently these flows are running. Usage report. This is great because it can actually show you which flows are being used, how often the flows are being used. Because maybe you have that API, a limitation that you need to keep in mind, and you have a flow that's running a lot, the high frequency there, and you need to figure out, okay, how can I reduce that or update it to configure it a little bit better to run in a more tighter time frame or a tighter option for when it triggers. So then you can change that information and go update that flow and then see the results here in the usage. The other is how many flows are created out here. So sometimes you'll give permissions to users to create their own personal flows, power users, so to speak, to create shared flows, and then these manually created flows as far as they're triggered by a button. And when were they created? Because obviously you need to keep a handle on that, because if you start getting a lot of flows out there and it consumes a lot of this, your API calls, you may need to have some more training or get with those users that have these flows that are just running a bunch, or they need some assistance with tweaking that. So here's a great place to go to see what flows were created. And then obviously, if there's any errors on the flows, you want to catch those and how often. And then at the bottom, it says errors across flows. It'll tell you the flow name, how many errors it's had in the last occurrence. So you can dive into that to see, ooh, why is this error occurring and what do I need to fix? And obviously shared flows. So I mentioned that a moment ago, but somebody can create a personal flow and then maybe share it with another person or another Office 365 group that you may have set up. So it's important to see what flows are being shared, and maybe you need to tweak that as far as allowing sharing or not. So there's a way to set up some policies for your flows, and as far as what can be shared or not, or what connectors are used. Speaking of connectors, this will show you the connectors that the flows are leveraging. So flows, Power Automate has, I think, over 300 flow connectors now for the flows that you create. So if you have policies in place, you can see the specific connectors that these flows are utilizing to run the automation. However, you can go manage those connectors in some policies, and I'll show that in just a moment. So you can reduce the risk if you have a high risk organization that you're in, as far as limiting security or limiting connections to things. And when you reduce that risk, you can put policies in place. All right, let me flip back over here. So next to that was the Power Apps analytics. Now, I want to take a little second here to explain. So you have Power Apps, which can be a Canvas app or a model-driven app. But Dynamics 365 apps such as sales or customer service are technically a Power App now. There's the first-party Power App, a lot of logic pre-built, a lot of things pre-built into that. So when you purchase the subscription for Dynamics 365 sales, or like I said, customer service. It's got a lot of pre-built things in there. It's technically a Power App. However, you can create your own apps, and those can be a Canvas app, model-driven app, but the important thing is the utilization and the performance of those apps. So this is where you would get those Power Apps analytics. So I'm gonna flip over real quick to the analytics area. And similar to Power Automate, this has some other statistics that you can review. So again, usage, this is technically using Power BI to surface this information. So as you land on this page, like the users report page, you may see the Power BI logo flash, loading up this report. And on the right-hand side, you'll see there's slicers that you can filter this information. Again, keep the date range filter in mind right here. So if you need to switch that up. The next one is the location report. So if you do have an organization where you're spread across the globe or across the country, you can see what regions are utilizing these apps and where they're being created, what versions they're on. So if you need to push out an updated version, so you can see that information right here. The next one is if there's any errors on any of your apps, you can see what kind of errors there were, what apps were triggering those errors, and maybe you need to go fix something on that. And service performance, how well are these apps performing? Was there any downtime, or did they run into any roadblocks, things of that nature? Is it because a connector was causing a performance issue? Do I need to go review that? So this is a lot of information here for the service performance. And then again, you got connectors. So I talked about connectors in Power Automate. Connectors are actually shared across these different Power Platform applications. So you may set up one connector for an on-premise, say, SQL Server database that you have, and you have Power Automate that's using that same connector to get triggered and run something or go update something there. Or you have a Power App that's using the connector to go read some data from that database and present it inside the app for information for the users. So connectors are really important to keep an eye on. All right, the next piece I mentioned was capacity. Again, this is your storage. Something to note, and you'll see mine looks a little odd right now, and this is because I'm in a trial instance or version of the Common Data Service, or in this case, Dynamics, and you'll see that I'm way over on the usage here with the percentage. But in your environment, you'll see the amount used, the amount allotted, because again, you're allotted so much space of capacity out of the gate, and based on the number of users you have. The other important thing is that compared to the old Admin Center, the new one here is breaking down the capacity into 3 areas, and that is database, log, and file. Okay? Obviously, your database is data stored in the database. Any logs that you're capturing, say audit logs, and file, like those attachments to, say, emails, or in notes, you can add an attachment, and that's consuming your file. The other piece is it's showing that overall breakdown across the whole organization, doesn't matter the environment. And then down below, it's showing each environment's breakdown. So you can see right here, I've got the file amount here, and then I've got the database amount here. However, you can drill into each environment further. So for example, I've got my environments here under storage capacity. If you click this small icon with, looks like a little chart, you can drill into the details. What's nice about this, as you can see, is a breakdown across those 3 categories I mentioned. So you have database, file, and log. And then underneath those, you can see which of the database tables are consuming the most of that storage capacity. So in this case, right here, I see the web resources base looks like the highest consumer of that capacity. Down under file, it looks like this one right here. It will highlight, by the way, to show the one that's selected. So this one's a solution. So if you highlight on the left, you'll see everything else gets dim on the right. And down here under log, I don't have any because I haven't turned any on. This gives you a nice set of information, but what's even further you can do, what's pretty cool, is if you click this little icon over here, the little hamburger button, as it's called, you can download all the tables into a CSV file. So you can review that in Excel or whatever program file you use to open your CSV file. So you can look at the full list of all the tables and see how much storage is being consumed by every table that's in your database. So that's very important if you're trying to manage your capacity, size, and information. All right. The next area is the apps. So if you recall, in the old Dynamics 365 Admin Center, we went to the Applications tab, and you saw the example I had was the portals. So you can install that under there or manage that. And you can see the similar options here. There's enabled or not configured, things of that nature. But you can go to the different apps and or at the top here and do a manage or get the details, okay, of that information, or you can install it. So it's up to you. So, but it's important to come here and review what's available. Again, depending on your subscription, the apps available could be different for you. So make sure you're reviewing your subscription to see what you purchased and if you're not seeing something that you thought you should be seeing. The other area is portals. So if you have obviously specific subscriptions and it gives you the portals option, when you install portals, you can check on that right here. So I have not pushed out the portals option on this particular environment, but I can come here and manage the portal information right here and open it up and go from there as far as administering that. There's a lot of other portal areas I won't cover, but from this perspective, that's where this is located. Help and support is just that. So if you need assistance from Microsoft, you can put in a support ticket right here. If you do have a partner that you're working with, you may see support tickets listed that the partner has put in with Microsoft on your behalf. So if they've escalated something or to Microsoft engineers and put that ticket in, you may see it listed out here as well. All right, so data integration. Now, again, this is another new area. I'm not going to go through everything setting up a data integration point, but I do want to highlight that it's very limited in what you can choose from right now as far as integrating sources and destinations here through the data integration area. The important thing to note is that, I type in test here, when you add your connection, it'll go out and give you a list of options to say, okay, here are the available options right now that you can connect to. As you can see, it's very limited. And depending on, again, on your subscription too. So if you have, say, Dynamics 365 Business Central, I believe it'll light up an option there for Business Central to set up a connection. So if you want to do some integration between Business Central or and you saw there, finance and operations, and have that come back to your Dynamics 365 sales, you can set up an integration job to do that. The other piece to cover is data gateways. Now, I'm going to pause here a moment. This is just like connectors. It can be a shared gateway across the different applications under the Power Platform. And what I mean by that, as you can see, they're listed right here. Keep in mind, Microsoft Flow is now called Power Automate. But the point of this data gateway is if you have on-premises information. So you have a legacy system somewhere, your own network environment, and you have a SQL database set up, you can access that through this gateway. And you can set up security around that to say, how strong is this gateway, who's allowed to update it, and then who has access to it. So you can set up multiple gateways. For example, if you have multiple on-premise environments, so like a sandbox environment or production environment or different application environments on your on-premise network, you can set up the gateways here. And those then become accessible to these different applications. So again, keep in mind who has access to do this is utilizing that through the reports that you see out there. Data policies. Now I mentioned this one here, and this is a critical piece, is that data policies help you define what connectors your organization will authorize for users to utilize within when they're setting up a flow in Power Automate or using Power Apps to connect to something. You can authorize and create a new policy. So for example, I'll file this demo policy and hit next. And here are all the connectors that are available now for the Power Platform. They're in alphabetic order. You can search, but the key thing is if you click down here, you can move to business to say, okay, these are approved business connectors for our organization that we're going to allow, or you can block it. If you're going to block the connector, again, make sure that you review your blocked list, because maybe later on you want to unblock it and it's an approved list. But notice the category is business and non-business. So maybe you say, okay, these are the approved connectors for our particular business, but we're aware that some of these are non-business applications. So keep in mind how you want to segment those. And then when users go out to choose a connector, these are the approved ones. So make sure you have some good policies in place accordingly. Maybe you have a policy called social media connectors, or common data service connectors, and things like that. However you want to categorize things, but have some sort of standard in place to set up your policy names and define the categories your connectors are going in. All right, the other piece is that recently, within the last few weeks, the Power Platform Center is basically becoming the all-in-one admin center. Previously, when you would expand this admin center's option on the left here, let me collapse a couple of these, you would have seen Power BI, Dynamics 365, Power Apps. There was a list of things here. So basically, the admin center was kind of like a hub, so to speak, and then you went out to the spoke of that hub for that unique application's admin center. That's going away, and now this is the all-in-one admin center. So keep that in mind. If you had been using the admin center previously and you were used to seeing these listed, the multiple applications listed for their admin centers, that's going away, and now it's all in one. The only one that's an outlier right here is the Power BI. What I said a while ago, this little icon right here indicates that it's going to open to a new tab, to a different tab, or maybe a legacy UI of some sort, but it's a little pop out. So just keep that in mind. So right here, as you can see, it's going to try to pop out to Power BI for me to sign in as an admin for that admin center. So do keep that in mind when you're running through this. All right, the other couple pieces I want to highlight while you're out here in the admin center is a couple other icons to keep in mind. This one up here with 9 little dots up in the top corner, that's actually called a waffle icon. We have the hamburger and waffle. I guess everybody had food on the mind for these icons. But if you click on this, you'll see other apps across the organization that you have access to. So Microsoft 365, here's all these apps. You can see more apps if you drill in, but that's one button. It's a quick way to get to additional apps outside of Power Platform Admin Center. The other is underneath this gear icon. You can get fancy if you want and get some themes and so forth. But there's some governance here that you can turn off for the settings. It's kind of buried under this little settings here. But you can control who can create production and sandbox environments and who can create trial environments. So that's important. So you can restrict to only specific admins. So if I mouse over, recall that screenshot I had was showing the global admin or the Power Platform admin, etc., are allowed to create, or maybe you have other admins that are allowed to create trials. So keep this in mind. It's kind of buried or hidden underneath this little gear icon, so that you won't forget that it's there. Obviously, maybe they'll move it later somewhere else. Another one is notifications. There are notifications you can turn on or off here. I do kind of wish that there was an option to include who receives notifications. Hopefully that'll be updated in the future under this setting to keep it simple in a singular location. But this is where you can just toggle things on and off. And then lastly, up here in the top right corner is your account. So you can access your Office, your Microsoft account, Office profile, and so forth. So those are small little icons here, and if there's any alerts that pop up. A lot of information packed into a short amount of time, so hopefully you got a gist of all the wonderful tools and functionality that's available compared to the old Admin Center. I do know that this has been an ever-evolving site. When they first launched this, there was not much out here, and there was only a couple options on the left side, and they've slowly been adding newer functionality. So keep that in mind. That's why I suggested try to use this site more than the legacy setups and settings that I covered a moment ago right here. So try to use this more often than the legacy UI, because eventually this is where you'll be going. You'll be going here for pretty much everything, except for some unique things inside those first-party apps as far as settings. But this is right here. Practice, practice, practice. So if you do need to come out here and to edit something, get used to coming out here and practicing editing it here and not in the classic. And what I mean by the classic, I'm expanding that real quick, just to give you a peek. I'll let that load up in a moment. But the classic is going to go away. Keep that in mind. Eventually, October, a little bit after, in 2020 this year, it's deprecated, the old classic UI. So get used to it now with the settings right here. All right, well, I'll let that load. It takes a while for the classic area to load. But I appreciate everyone joining today. And I'll be hopefully enjoy the rest of the DynamicsCon conference and all the other wonderful speakers and information that they're providing. And I'll just let that die. That's taking too long. But at any rate, that just takes you to the old classic settings area, and you can update the settings over there. So with that in mind, thank you for joining today. I do, however, want to leave you with my information if you do need to connect with me in any way. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter. I do have a blog site that I try to blog as much as I can out there. And so you can connect with me in multiple ways. And I look forward to chatting with you virtually or hopefully in person at some future date once we get through the whole COVID issues of today. And thank you very much, and have a wonderful afternoon.